Ladies and gentlemen, the keynote will begin momentarily. Please move forward and take your seats. Ladies and gentlemen, as a reminder, please set your electronic devices to silent, but have them ready to email or text your questions for the panel at askmetna@gmail.com. At this time, please join me in welcoming to the stage Lieutenant General Bob Shea, U.S. Marine Corps retired President, CEO, AFCEA International.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for hanging with us. This is going to be a continuation. We had a really super presentation by this morning when we started this, kicked this thing off. And our friend here, General Hersey, just did a great job of kind of highlighting some of the challenges that he sees, some of the issues that are out there. And there are a lot of things to think about. And if I just kind of go back and recap a few of them, he talked about the fact we must achieve effects beyond the kinetic domain, and that's kind of really what we're dealing with from the information piece. We must provide commanders with options. I think that's something all commanders want. They want to have the options out there. They don't want, so they can choose what they see as the best course of action. The need to improve training, and I think we'll hear a little bit about that or touch on that a little bit in the next presentation you're going to have. We must stay active in the physical domain as well. The partnerships are key. And there were several other things General Hersey highlighted. He highlighted the need for innovation, the desire to learn together and work with industry, and the need for talent management. And those are just several things he touched on. He touched upon a broad range of challenges and opportunities out there, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that in our next presentation. For those of you who haven't been around, you can see the students are out here, and I think that's really an exciting thing. There are students from across the greater Augusta area that have been participating. They're around visiting the floor. They had a presentation given to them this morning, and they were really excited and fired up. It was almost like being at a pep rally for a football game if you were in the back room and you heard the cheers and the shouts and the excitement that was going on back there. But anyway, there's a lot going on, and we've still got more to come today, so thank you for being with us. Before we introduce our speaker, I'd like to once again recognize Colonel Pat Harrington, AFCEA's Regional Vice President for the Georgia region, for her help and assistance in putting together this event and for all she does for AFCEA. I'd also like to thank Colonel Sly Cotton, Bob Damon, Amy Tushin, and all the other local chapter leadership and the volunteers who have been so crucial to planning the success of this event. Without their support, and these are people that give freely of themselves because they recognize the mission of AFCEA is so important to our national strategy, our national security, as well as international security with our international partners, whether they come from NATO, whether they come from East Asia, or anywhere around the globe. So I think that's important, and our volunteers are such a crucial factor in what we do. I'd now like to introduce our speaker. This woman, when I looked at her biography and I made the comment to her before, I don't know that I've ever seen, I'm not going to go through all the details in there, I don't know that I've ever seen anyone who's had such a diverse career pattern. It's just absolutely incredible, all the things that she's done. Major General Maria Gervais is the Director of Synthetic Training Environment Cross-Functional Team at the Army Futures Command. General Gervais has commanded at every level, and her most recent assignment was as a Deputy Commanding General of the Combined Arms Center Training, where she was responsible for developing the collective training and requirements and solutions fielding training systems, delivering leader training, and sustaining training capabilities for the Army. And again, if I was to point you back to her biography, you can see where she's got great experience in that regard. As the director of STE, she is charged with rapidly expanding the Army's synthetic training capability to the point of need, which will enable units located anywhere in the world to train seamlessly together in an integrated, live, virtual, and constructive environment. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please join me in welcoming General Gervais to the stage.
Hey, so good morning. How's everybody doing this morning? All right, well, great. Hey, so, I really appreciate the opportunity to address this very distinguished audience. It's good to see so many of our industry, academia, and even our school students here today, because we're all focused really on the same thing. And that is really delivering capability for our Army, our nation, and most importantly, for that soldier on the ground. So now look, I have to manage expectations here as I start. So first of all, I know you're in day 3 of TechNet. I know it is 11:15, it's almost lunchtime, and I'm the only thing that's standing between you and lunch and getting out there back out on the floor to enjoy yourself. So I'm going to try and keep this short, keep it to the point of the things that I'm thinking about from a training perspective. But before I begin, I'd really like to thank Sir, first of all, thank you for that very kind introduction. Also, thank AFCEA and Major General Hersey for the invitation to come talk to you about something I'm very passionate about, and that is the Army's initiative known as the Synthetic Training Environment, or STE, as we call it. But more importantly, it's going to be what I think is going to be the second revolution in training for our Army in our future training environment. And in case you're wondering, what was the first revolution? Well, that was the development of our live combat training centers back in the 80s. What I see we're able to do today with technology and where we're going with it, I believe will lead us to a second revolution. And the thing I'm very excited about from an Army perspective is that this is the first holistic training strategy that the Army is implementing. And I'll lay that out and you'll understand why I'm excited about that. Now, for those of you who don't know me, I am Major General Maria Gervais, and I've spent the last 3 years serving as the Deputy Commanding General for Combined Arms Center Training, which is part of TRADOC. And my focus in that role was really looking at the requirements and also what was required to replicate in the operational environment so units could train from a collective perspective. So think about what I just said. How do you replicate the operational environment that soldiers and leaders will fight in with the degree of realism so that they can plan and prepare? Because see, that piece of kit is great, but if they don't train with it, if they don't have confidence in it, then the thing that will make or break them is the ability to train. So we see the synthetic training environment as that tool to get us there. So, I kind of looked at that part of my job, from that perspective. But I was dual-hatted. I was also the synthetic training environment cross-functional team lead for the past 17 months. And so with that, I'm aligned to the Army's sixth modernization priority, which is soldier lethality. But I need you to know that we are cross-cutting with all of the other CFTs, but not just the other CFTs. We are cross-cutting across everything that's being done in the Army from a training perspective. So one of the reasons I'm so passionate about this is because we are thinking about training in the beginning before we ever think about the material solution. So the power of what we're about to deliver is the ability to train on something before you ever have that piece of kit. So I'm very excited about that because, it is a change in the paradigm in our culture on what we've been doing. Additionally, working with the other CFTs, I'm very closely linked with all of the other CFTs, and especially the network CFT, along with all of the other communications stakeholders that are going to help deliver STE to the point of need. Now let me define point of need. Point of need is wherever a commander or a soldier needs to train. That means they don't have to go to a location, they don't have to go to a consolidated place, but they have the ability so that they can train wherever they need to train on the terrain. And so as we look at it, STE will be delivered via the network. So we can train as we will fight. Now, whether that will be on the tactical network as part of the Integrated Visual Augmentation System, which we're part of, or IVAS, or whether that is part of the enterprise network at our post camps and stations. So we're working with all of the stakeholders. So as when I show you the visualization of STE, you'll say, how are you going to do that? You'll see that a big piece of this is that it's very, we have to have the right communications backbone infrastructure in place with a good data management strategy, so we are able to do this. Now, I know that the theme of TechNet is really focused on, cyberspace and building the multi-domain force, but I need to manage your expectations. I'm going to start focusing on how do we train that force and what do we need to do and be thinking about in the future so that we can also achieve multi-domain operations and also address gaps we have today in our training environment. So what I'm going to do next 15, 20 minutes, first I'm going to show you a video which depicts the STE vision, and it helps with the kind of visualizing what we're trying to do. I'm going to spend a few minutes talking to you about where we are, why we need to change, and what we're trying to achieve. And you notice I keep saying what we're trying to achieve, because I think that's very important. Instead of focusing on the requirement, if I focus on what we're trying to achieve, then that allows the innovation, that allows our industry partners, our academia partners, to bring us what is in the realm of the possible. And then I'm going to give you my insights on the challenges we have to overcome, what I'm kind of focused on, and where potentially I can see that you can help. So I'm going to ask, let's go ahead and play the video, please.
The U.S. Army must train to win in a complex world. And that demands adaptive leaders and organizations that can thrive in ambiguity and chaos. To meet this need, Force 2025 and beyond requires a new training environment that is flexible, supports repetition, reduces overhead, and available at the point of need. The answer is the Synthetic Training Environment, or STE. The STE will provide immersive and intuitive capabilities that keep pace with a changing operational environment, giving commanders the ability to overcome today's limitations and take on the challenges of tomorrow. Advancements in virtual reality, big data analysis, artificial intelligence, and terrain representation will make this possible. The current simulations within the integrated training environment do not provide the realism, interoperability, affordability, and availability necessary to meet the breadth of training required for tomorrow's Army. The STE, however, will converge live, virtual, and constructive simulations into a single cohesive training capability.
The STE will increase readiness through repetition of multi-echelon, multi-domain, combined arms maneuver, and mission command training. And most importantly, the STE will train soldiers for where they will fight.
One World Terrain has established a proven pipeline from collection through application that reduces the time, cost, and manpower associated with geospatial data generation.
STE will immerse soldiers and units into future operational environments that replicate the actual terrain they will operate on before leaving home station. Our soldiers will become virtual veterans of 25 bloodless battles before the first round is ever fired in combat. Short of live, combined arms collective training, STE will be the most powerful training capability the U.S. Army has ever had.
One World Terrain tools are already in the hands of warfighters across the force. These warfighters are collecting their own areas of interest at the point of need. This low-cost capability is organic to a unit, meaning they can use it both at home station and deployed locations. One World Terrain tools are built to support tactical decision-making for both operations and training. This support comes through applications allowing users to conduct line-of-sight analysis, route planning, and minimum standoff distance calculations. Above all, these tools give the ground fighters a much clearer picture of a target area prior to being on target, offering situational awareness at an unprecedented level of fidelity. That's where One World Terrain is now. And here's where it's going. Researchers are making data more interoperable across the modeling, simulation, and geospatial communities by establishing a unified data model. They're fusing multiple geospatial sources, from satellites to interior captures, into seamless products for decision makers to use. Most importantly, they're building the infrastructure to make global data available at the point of need. To that end, researchers are exploring the integration of high-detail one-world terrain data into the command post computing environment to enhance leaders' situational awareness and command and control capabilities. The same data will be shared with users through the Joint Battle Command Platform and Distributed Common Ground System, providing better situational awareness than satellite reconnaissance alone. These same terrain services are available on other Mission Command applications as well, such as ARC, ATAC, and the Army's newest capability, the Integrated Visual Augmentation System. As One World Terrain research continues forward, there are exciting operational possibilities, like infrared photogrammetry, base defense, and change detection. The STE will fundamentally change the way the Army delivers training capabilities by enhancing realistic training and preparing warfighters for multi-domain operations.
The STE will give us a powerful tool to fully realize objective training levels of proficiency. It will prepare soldiers for tomorrow's missions and develop leaders to thrive in ambiguity and chaos. The STE is the Army's future.
The synthetic training environment. Revolutionizing training to build readiness.
Yeah, so ladies and gentlemen, a little alibi on the video. So yes, General Funk has taken over TRADOC, so we know that, but I will submit to you, General Funk will support this just as General Townsend did. And here's why. General Funk was a former CAC-T, and his greatest frustration that he expressed to us was, he said, when I was a commander, I could never get the terrain that I was about to deploy on and have it ready for training. So that was his frustration. General Townsend's frustration was in a theater, in the middle of a battle, they could clearly see that a building had been destroyed. However, when they took a look at it in their Mission Command information systems, they didn't have the same ability to have that relevant terrain data to show that that building had been destroyed. So one of the key things is, how do we get relevant training terrain at the point of need when a commander needs it and be responsive to their needs? So you have seen that the world has changed and it will continue to change, and we have to change, and we must change how we deliver training at all levels. So if you saw it, the emerging operating environment is becoming more contested, more lethal, and more complex. The future OE will be one where U.S. forces and our allies are contested in all domains: space, cyber, air, land, maritime, an environment where adversaries and competitors are challenging our deterrence, and an environment that is complex, dynamic, and unforgiving. And you also are already seeing the increased speed of interaction, the exponential growth of computing power, speed, and artificial intelligence, the great potential for overmatch, also the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, the spread of advanced cyberspace and counter space capabilities, and the ease of technology transfer to state, non-state, and hybrid actors. And also transparency and ubiquitous sensing and media. So in this emerging environment, we will be forced to engage non-state actors, hybrid threats, and also terrorist organizations in a myriad of different terrains, including megacities, the sprawling plains, and dense littoral regions. So in the end, and you kind of have heard this theme over and over again, it's he or she who can sense the quickest, process and analyze information, data using artificial intelligence or machine learning to speed decision making, and also distribute that information to the quickest to the multiple shooters. Now, whether that shooter is kinetic or non-kinetic, that's who will win and where we are heading. So the question and what I think about is, how do you replicate the operational environment, and how do you train for this type of future warfare in a multi-domain environment? Because if we look at it, the scale and scope of large-scale multi-domain combat is significantly different than what we've experienced over the last 18 years. Transitioning from almost 2 decades of intense focus on counterinsurgency and stability operations to being able to compete and prevail in large-scale multi-domain combat against near-peer threats requires not only changes in Army training methods, but also in our culture. So while the basic principles of training remain the same, i.e. train the way we fight, commanders drive-in training, training to standard, and also training combined arms at multiple echelons, the solutions and the processes that deliver this training must transform. So I'm going to pause right here and say, even though, our tenet is that we train as we fight, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to submit to you that we don't train as we fight. We don't have the structure in place. We have lots of workarounds. We have challenges. And we have things that are leading to our inability to train to our maximum extent possible. So as we look at this on this slide, and I'll orientate you to it, the left-hand side as you're looking at it is the as-is, and the STE is the to-be. And we lay that out because, our live virtual gaming and constructive training environments do not adequately replicate current and emerging threats. Our operational environment conditions or the key capabilities across all war fighting functions to meet not only today's threat and training requirement, but also our future requirements. So current training support capabilities do not accurately replicate near-peer threat, integrated virus complexes, integrated air defense, electronic warfare, information, cyber, space capabilities, dense urban terrain, complex physical obstacles, manned and unmanned air threats. And additionally, our current legacy training systems are not sufficiently interoperable with joint and multinational partner systems. They're not sustainable, and they have not kept pace with technology. And part of that is because this is 1980s and 90s technology that you see on the left-hand side of the slide. In the blue is the virtual capabilities we have. In the bottom is the live, think miles, think force on force, force on target. And then in the green, in the lower box, is our big constructive warfighter exercises or capability. But all of those were developed independently, stovepipe, proprietary. And then what we had to do is, you see in the middle, you see something called SE Core, which is the terrain that has to support all of these different capabilities. So we have over 57 different terrain formats and growing that we're trying to line up in all our different systems. So terrain is an Achilles heel. That's why One World Terrain is such a pillar of the synthetic training environment. And then the way we have to make all of that work to do live, virtual, and constructive training is we have that integrating architecture that links it all together. Now, we can do live, virtual, constructive training today. I'm not saying we can't. We can only do that in 12 locations because it takes a facility, it takes a large overhead of contractors to make it work, and we spend about 120 to 180 days to line everything up to make it work. So I would ask you, are we responsive to a commander? Are we agile enough to adapt to an emerging training environment or emerging threat? I would tell you no. But we're taking a look at that right now. And so if you look at it, finally, soldiers and units are unable to fully train as they are required to fight as limitations in training areas, challenges with integration across platforms, immature SEMA authorities, and the increasing costs of live training does not fully allow the use of mission command systems, advanced weapons platforms, and other enabling capabilities. These shortfalls in training support capabilities, training support capabilities inhibit the lethality and the warfighting proficiency required to prevail in a multi-domain armed conflict, and we must quickly close these gaps. So as you take a look at this slide, and I'll explain what it means in just a second, our primary training environment will shift to the synthetic training environment to better replicate and integrate all domains of warfare. both enemy and friendly, allowing units to train with all their weapon systems, mission command systems, key enabling capabilities, and also our joint and allied partners in a complex operational environment. So the Army's vision directs at the rapid expansion of our synthetic training environment and deeper distribution of simulation capabilities down to the company level to significantly enhance soldier and team lethality. Therefore, soldiers and units must become accustomed to training with advanced technology using artificial intelligence, autonomous platforms, and robotics. STE will allow our modern Army to train where it is difficult to train today and where it may be otherwise impossible to train in the future. Training within these environments can be repeated under multiple conditions with the level of multi-domain realism and large-scale combat operations rigor required for mastery. So when the Army Vision was published, it addressed this emerging environment by centering on the lethality of our exceptional soldiers and leaders. The STE is paramount to that vision. In fact, the synthetic training environment is specifically addressed as the tool that will enhance soldier and team lethality by creating tough, realistic, and dynamic training at the point of need. So STE is the Army's #1 training modernization priority, and it will provide individual and collective multi-echelon training and mission rehearsal capability for the operational, the institutional, and the self-development training regimes or domains. STE will better replicate the OE, including cyber, electronic warfare, space, dense urban terrain, megacities, and will improve interoperability with the Joint Force and allied partners by using common terrain, common data, common standards, open cross-domain architectures which integrate emerging technology. And it will develop a common simulation environment for live, virtual, and constructive training, which operates on Army networks delivered to the point of need. That point of need, whether it's home station, whether it's a deployed location, whether it's an armory located in multiple different states, reserve centers for all components. So simply put, STE enhances readiness by preparing the force for any fight, anywhere. So looking at the hourglass on the slide. So units will prepare for this emerging operating environment by training at home station, whether in armories, orderly rooms, or even in the field. Home station training typically culminates in a command post exercise prior to rotation to one of our live combat training centers. So time is the most important resource we can give a commander, their staff, and our soldiers. Units are constrained by time, training area availability, relevant operational environment data, and also resources required to make training iterative, realistic, and relevant. We must provide our soldiers, leaders, and units the ability to conduct hundreds of repetitions wherever they are located so they can improve muscle memory and increase proficiency, enabling our units to enter live training at a high level of proficiency. Through our technology areas, the STE will make it possible for units to enhance home station training, unit performance, and will hone cognition skills and decision making by focusing on those common standards, common data, and also the common terrain to maximize interoperability. It will have ease of integration and also lead to cost savings. Now, our open architecture standards ensures that as technology changes and matures, the STE is capable of integrating that new technology to enable the most up-to-date training that our war fighters deserve. So I'm going to say but. STE is only possible. It is only possible if there is a good data management strategy in place to capitalize and leverage the AI and machine learning capabilities, and the infrastructure exists to be able to deliver STE to the point of need, even in a denied environment. So what does that mean to you, and how can you help? First of all, I think it's important for you to know that the STE CFT strategy is that we are going to leverage the $126 billion virtual and gaming industry that is just exploding, and that includes the telecommunications and communications industry too. Just the technology is exploding. There is technology today that can improve our training right now today, and we are going to leverage that these industries, and we are going to leverage about 85%, maybe 90% of it, and then be only 10% different, versus our previous strategy, which was, here's your Army requirement, we're completely different, go build it. So we are going to capitalize on all of the great advances in these industries so that we can bring all of this to bear. And we're going to leverage commercial standards. That's going to allow us to evolve with technology. And we will only deviate from these standards only when absolutely necessary. As many of you know, we are very challenged at all echelons in achieving interoperability between our simulations, our simulators, which impacts at the point of need. Or think about when you have to do a mission rehearsal exercise before a real-world mission. Common standards and authoritative data is lacking, and even our terrain is different. This means that we spend too much time getting what I call getting the back end fixed. So we can train to conduct or conduct a mission rehearsal exercise. This lack of common standards, authorities, and also data and terrain leads to lengthy and intensive resource exercise design. For some exercises, I mean, it is as long as 120 to 180 days. And to achieve interoperability on some of our warfighters, it took us 10 months, 21 general officers, and an entire fleet, and I say that, of experts across the military and our industry partners to get the systems between our UK partners and us lined up. I will tell you, quite frankly, training has become a burden to a commander. And we need to change that, and we need to get to better planning and execution and also implementation so we can reduce this burden on the commanders. Therefore, I think our focus on getting to, and you've heard it before, common standards, common data, an open architecture with common terrain is going to improve interoperability and is also going to allow us to improve our responsiveness to commanders. But I will also submit to you, key to improving lethality is we must improve our C2 and mission command capabilities. Our C2 processes have not kept up with the game-changing technologies advances we've seen over the past 5 to 10 years. Many processes are time-consuming, manually intensive, ad hoc, and leave much of our collective data unused and unexploited, in my mind. So good examples of this, I mean, you just kind of saw it in the video. Our current terrain generation is a manual process, takes about 1.5 years to generate a terrain database for about $1.5 million. Not responsive when we've been asked to do something quickly. But you have seen in the One World Terrain that we're going to automated processes and using the available technology to speed those efforts. But with that, I will also say we got to also understand that we got to change our culture in terms of being able to accept this automation, AI, and processes, and trust it to deliver what it is that we need. So where do we need help? Okay, there's a lot on our plate. I think you saw that in the video, right? There is a lot on our plate, and there's a lot of people right now. Let me see if I can get this thing on. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Can you guys hear me? Nope. Nope. Can you hear me? Yes. All right, good. So where do we need your help? Okay, so first of all, you kind of saw what we're trying to do. That is going to create some bandwidth challenges, creates latency challenges, because we can't have latency challenges, especially in a user experience. So we have to overcome some of the latency challenges that we have. We have to make sure that our communication structure we have cyber baked in every single step of the way. Because quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen, the synthetic training environment is going to have a lot of information that we have to make sure that we can protect adequately. And we have to make sure that in that protection, that our cyber capability protection does not induce latency. We have to figure out, how do you move terrain? How do you move terrain in a manner? Because right now, even 2D terrain, we're doing what's called the sneaker net, which is, putting it on hard drives, shipping it around the world for what you need. But you can see commercial sectors changing, automated processes, the ability to use 3D terrain is just exploding. So how do we overcome how to store that? How do you manage it? How do you move it? How do you not break the network as you're doing this? We're working through all of those things right now. as we're trying to deliver the speed. So we need help in all of those areas. How do you compress data? How do you only send the changes that you need from that terrain? How do you store something that you know is going to be a big storage capability? Because the difference in one world terrain is that units now have the ability to capture that terrain, put it in a pipeline, process it, put it in 3D simulation, and put it in their mission command information systems and their simulators, and it's all the same. Okay, so we know that units are going to be generating that. So how do you take that terrain and get it back, and then get it synchronized and get it stored so that it can be used with everybody? So we have a lot of challenges in terms of, compression, elasticity. How do you reduce bandwidth? How do you reduce latency? Where do you need to reduce latency? Where do you bring technologies in so that you're using the right technology in the right place at the right time so it can be used? So we have a lot of things. Thanks. So we have a lot of things that we are actually trying to work our way through. In addition, you saw in that video, we need intelligent tutoring to be coming in so that we can also want to be able to use AI so that we can do task analysis, so that we can do instantaneous AER feedbacks, and we can inform our soldiers, our squads, to be able to do this. And really what we need to do is be able to move an analog training capability into a digital type training capability, which is where we know our formations are going. My partner is sitting right down there, one of my partners, Tony Potts. We are working closely with Tony Potts on the integrated visual augmentation system. That is going to be a fight, train, rehearse capability, digital, and it's all going to be done with the same piece of equipment to truly get after, train as you're going to fight. We have challenges that we're overcoming there, but we are working towards that right now. So, I will say this, and I'm going to shut up because I want to hear your questions. There are people that say everything I just laid out, they say, oh my gosh, you got a lot on the plate. This isn't possible. It's far-fetched. It's hard to imagine. Well, guess what? I'm just going to tell you right now, I absolutely disagree with you. I had people tell me we couldn't do this until 2030. What we did is we came out and we laid out what we're trying to achieve. We started working with industry. We started putting our other transactional authorities in place. We started understanding what was in the realm of the possible. And I will tell you, the work that we're doing on the integrated visual augmentation system, which somebody said I could not provide a squad immersive environment for the squad, the infantry squad, until about 2026. We pulled that forward, and we're going to do it in 2021. And oh, by the way, we're already showing the infantry soldiers what we're seeing, and they already have said we will take some of this technology now. So I know if I challenge you, I tell you what our problems are between our industry, academia, and our partners in the room, military partners and our coalition partners, we can figure this out. Because, ladies and gentlemen, if we don't do this and we don't train and prepare, I guarantee our enemies are. And the way that we can make sure that our soldiers are prepared and we're ready for this dynamic environment, this ever-changing that you heard General Fogarty talk about early on, the way that you get to that is through repetition, muscle memory, and this is what the former Secretary of Defense Mattis talked about when he said, you got to be able to have 25 bloodless battles before the first battle. But we have to be able to overcome some of the limitations in our current training environment and move toward the synthetic training environment and be able to evolve with technology, because technology is going to continue to move, and if we stay back, we're going to be in an industrial age training capability when we really need to be able to take advantage of all the technology that's out there. So I'm going to shut up. We got about 15 minutes, about a little more than that, and take questions. Okay, I don't know how the question's going to work, do I?
Yeah, I got it, ma'am. Thank you. Just so everybody knows, the questions will be coming in over this email address here, and I have several already teed up. So the first question, will the red team or OPT4 construct in live virtual constructive training be replicated in STE for cyber threats?
Hey, so great question, and yes, it absolutely has to be, okay, because if you look at it, what we want to do is not just, we don't want just to be able to go against what I call semi-automated forces, right? I don't want semi-automated forces that it's scripted and you go through. We want a free-thinking enemy, because a free-thinking enemy that's also getting better as you're getting better is going to challenge us. So from the cyber perspective, we want cyber Op4, just as we do in our current live, just as we do in our current constructive environment, to have the ability to test the blue force, right? And so we want to make sure that that capability is built in, or that option, that tool, is available to the Op4, so that we can make sure that as we're training our soldiers, we're replicating the true operational environment with the right realism. That's what we're trying to do. I've worked with the cyber school and also our combat training centers as we looked at how do we deliver the cyber Op4 capability necessary to train the training unit out at our live combat training centers. We've had to put some things in place. We've also looked at how do we do that from a constructive. So we are doing it to a degree, but it's not as integrated right now as it should be. We want it to be part of the synthetic training environment. Hopefully that answered your question.
Thank you, ma'am. The next question. With multi-domain operations as an Army focus, will operating forces in other domains be replicated in STE?
So in STE, we will primarily be focused on the Army piece of it, but we are working with our other services right now so that as we lay this out, we kind of lay out the same similar ability that we have in our current constructive capability. But the challenge we have with that is our current constructive capability, okay, it's federated, right? They're doing the same thing we're doing with our virtual simulators. We're all trying to hook it together. We have gateways, translators, and everything that we need. What we're trying to do is create that open architecture so that all the other services, we can all come in and be part of that environment. So where we really think the multi-domain operations piece will come together is in the constructive capability, which is the big warfighter type exercises to plan, prepare, and division commanders and corps commanders, but also have the ability to present those problem sets to our brigade combat teams as we're taking a look at it. So right now, where are we in terms of having the ability to have, be able to replicate multi-domain operations? The Air Force has come and is talking to me about making sure they can link into the common synthetic environment that we're developing right now. We had the Marines have been on our cross-functional team. We'll work with the Navy and also the Joint Staff as we're moving forward. Because see, in the whole concept of multi-domain operations, I didn't say Army shooter, did I? I didn't. It's getting that information out. Who is the best shooter? Whether that's kinetic, non-kinetic, whether that's U.S., whether that's Air Force, whether that's Navy, that's the whole concept of multi-domain operations, being able to leverage and take and capitalize on what is the best opportunity to make this work. So STE will be a big part of that, and quite frankly, to me, STE is the place where you're truly going to be able to train multi-domain operations. But we got to make sure the other services, and we're also able to bring our other partners into that environment. And to me, the only way we can truly do that is with that open architecture as we're building towards the future.
Thank you, ma'am. Next question. Do you plan to integrate or incorporate the persistent cyber training environment being developed for the cyber mission forces into the STE?
So, that question has come up several times, and actually that question came up in 2016 at the Mission Command Summit, and the directive from the Army leadership at that time was that we had to ensure that the persistent cyber training environment was not a standalone capability, and it was integrated into the synthetic training environment. So we are watching that closely. The good news is that both of those are down in my material developer, PEO STRI. So we are looking at their lessons learned, and we're also looking at how do we make sure that we're able to bring in that capability. Because that's what we don't want, is we don't want standalone, and then we have to come back and integrate things, because then we're back exactly where we are today. Next question.
Had to find the button, sorry. Next question. Since we don't train as we fight, we train as we can afford. How do you expect the billions of dollars in funding this requires will be prioritized against other modernization priorities?
Hey, so great question. So I think a couple things I'll say on that. So first of all, the Army leadership has made a decision that we want to move to the synthetic training environment. And that is why I'm aligned with the Army's 6th modernization priority, so that we can ensure that this effort is funded. But the next part of that, though, is I'm going to challenge back on the billions of that, okay? Because if you look at the virtual and gaming industry and everything that's being done, the technology cost of that to the commercial consumer is actually going down. So what we've been able to do is through the other transactional authorities contracts we put in place to take a look at the requirement and also to take a look at the costing, we have a better cost position going forward. And then the third point I'll make to that, if I kind of show you the billions that is being sunk in today to make sure that we sustain, you know, a capability that actually met our needs back then, but is not meeting our needs today. You know, if I show you that and how that cost is going up, I think the compelling argument is we need to modernize our training environment to take advantage of this technology. One, because it'll be current, it'll be more realistic, and quite frankly, you know, our soldiers today will do this because it will be more realistic and more similar to, you know, what they go play in their barracks rooms after they get off our simulations, which is very sterile and very, in terms of terrain and realism. So if we improve that environment, I think, you know, we will show that we will be able to improve readiness, and the cost and the benefit will be much greater. So I agree it's going to be some costly, but in the end game, I think the benefits far outweigh the cost.
Thank you, ma'am. Next question. What were the key friction points in training with the United Kingdom or other multinational partners, and will the STE help to overcome them?
Yeah. Oh, so, you know, that's a great question. We got like 10 minutes. I'll try and keep this short. Just to put it in context for everybody. So about 2017, warfighter we had with our third UK partner. It was a great warfighter. We brought our UK partners in, but we had some challenges in terms of our systems being able to communicate. We had challenges with being able to share information. For example, we were able to produce an order, but it took us almost 8 to 12 hours to give that to our UK partner. Okay, that was some policy restrictions. It was also being able to get our systems to talk together. So from a warfighter perspective, it was a success. From a multinational interoperability perspective, it was a dismal failure. And it was because we didn't understand what cross-domain solutions needed to be in place. We didn't understand what, you know, common formats, common standards need to be put in place. So the next warfighter, what we did is we put together what we thought a mission partner environment needed to look like, and we put that in place for 18.4 so that it can inform the enduring mission partner environment. Achieved better success than we ever thought. But look, I'm going to go back and say this. You had 21 general officers, 10 months, and then, like I said, I think we had an army of technical experts all down there in the trenches making it work so that, you know, nobody understood how hard that duck was paddling underwater and how many times we almost drowned ourselves. That didn't matter because at the end of the day, we achieved the mission set. So there was a lot of things all the way from intel, from our fires perspective, and also from our simulation perspective, being able to replicate that operational environment. So you guys keep putting the lights on me and I keep moving. Just so you know, I know what you're doing, but those lights are in my eyes, so I'm purposely moving, just so you know, okay? But I think that what we found out in that exercise has actually helped us pave the way, and it's informing the requirement from a mission partner environment. But when I said train as we fight, the other piece we learned, for example, our mission command training program, what we did is when we executed that, because we had no mission partner environment, we had no training network, but really no environment that we would actually train as we would fight. What we did is we turned around and said, here you go, Corps. Corps, you have to set up what is known as the top COP, you know, and then units would come and plug into that partner environment. Well, when they go to combat, a Corps doesn't do that. But we were placing that burden on the unit. So we stepped back and we said, okay, we're going to set up the mission partner environment. We're going to serve as at that level. And then units are just going to come in, and just as they would train, as they would go into the fight, that's how they were executing the mission. So we learned a whole lot through that process. A lot of friction points, still a lot to be worked out. But, we have made tremendous progress, and we're taking those lessons learned as we go forward to working with our other partners.
Thank you, ma'am. That was the final question.
Okay. Anybody have a unspent round, or are you just all hungry? I'll get you afterwards. Good.
Email didn't go through apparently, ma'am. Blenders for BAE Systems. I'm wondering, as you were putting together this, have you talked to the Navy FISTFAC folks that actually do live, constructive, and virtual as well? Given the fact you want to talk multi-domain operations, you want to talk joint, they've got a fairly robust system that is shaking heads.
Yeah.
How you coordinating with those?
No, so what we do, what I've found as we go out and we talk about these different things, getting to that shared understanding of exactly how you're approaching the live, virtual, and constructive piece and what you're doing, I think is very, very important because some things are integrated at a certain level. And look, each service has a different requirement. The Air Force has taken a look at it. They have some very expensive simulators that they've already have money that they thinking about, do I hook them together and make them work as we move towards this, or do I go to something new? That's pretty costly. Navy does some similar things. It's the way they do it and how they do it, and then what we want to achieve from the ground. I think there's commonality in many of these, but also some of the limitations that you don't quite see because they are doing live, virtual, and constructive, but it's how they're doing it. So we've worked with the Navy, and actually, I think where I'm at, I'm located in Orlando, Florida, so I have the Navy material developer down there, I have the Air Force material developer, the Marine, all right there that is focused on simulation. So we share all of that and all of those discussions as we're going forward. So great question, because there's a lot of good things that are going out there. So hopefully I wasn't like Debbie Downer and you're going to lunch all depressed because I can't train, because we can do a lot.
No, ma'am. Thank you very much. Please welcome back to the stage Lieutenant General Bob Shea, President and CEO of AFCEA, to thank Major General Gervais on her presentation.
As I was sitting here listening to the presentation that was given, General Gervais, she really got my head spinning and thinking about a lot of different things in terms of the potential this has. And it really is revolutionary. As she said, you need to think about training from the very beginning and getting the training getting these capabilities to the point of need, whether it's training, operations, planning, whatever the case may be. If you can think about, I like to draw football analogies, and when she was talking up here, the thing that's run through my mind was a picture of Bill Belichick talking to Tom Brady, showing him where he made a mistake or where there was an open receiver or what he could be doing and things, what he should be doing, and looking, where are the keys that are out there. And you could take this whole concept to multiple levels of degree deeper than that, particularly when you add the 3D dimension in there and things like that. And when you think about the value that it provides in coalition planning and operations, you can visualize, the commander can point out exactly what he wants done, where he sees the challenge and the obstacle, and I think it helps not just in the execution, but in the planning and explaining what the commander's intent is. And what he's really trying to accomplish across a broad spectrum of operations and planning strategically. And again, when you're out in the training environment, you can stop to show people visually where they didn't do what you wanted them to do, so, or the potential. So thank you, General Gervais, for joining us here today. And in lieu of a speaker gift, AFCEA will be making a donation to the Fisher House on your behalf. Thank you very much. Great presentation. Got me thinking a lot. Thank you very much. Well done. Thank you.
This. Yes, right, and I'll leave you this.
So at this time, could I ask you to just hold in place for a minute, please? I know you're hungry. We're not going to let them feed you until if you run out the door. I'd like to invite General Hersey to join me at the stage while we recognize some strong supporters of our program from the Fort Gordon and Cyber Center of Excellence. We truly are grateful to the Army Cyber Center of Excellence and the entire Fort Gordon community team for their advice as we developed the program for this event. In particular, we'd like to ask the following individuals to join us on the stage. Master Sergeant Colt Kaufman, Major Stephanie Royal, Margie Waters, and Brennan Ray. These individuals were instrumental in the planning and the execution of TechNet and went above and beyond in all areas, and I'd like to present each of them the AFCEA Presidential Coin recognition of their efforts. Have a round of applause for them, please. So General Hersey's done a great job in helping us to shape what's going on here, and his team has done remarkable work. And so at this time, I'd like to ask him if there's any other remarks that you'd like to make before we.
So I will be very brief because I know it is before lunchtime. But thanks again to AFCEA. And while I was sitting there, I've redesignated the acronym that is AFCEA for Association for Collaboration, Engagement, and Advancement. Because frankly, that's what we've been doing this week, bringing our academic partners, our industry partners, our sectors from the uniformed service, from the civilian service, and the support contractors that make us a total force. And I don't want to forget our Guard and Reserve folks that really, particularly in this profession, really make us the total force and the winning force that we are. We're transitioning to the next phase after we get into lunch, and we're I would say among the most important things we're going to talk about is how do we build the capabilities that we don't yet have that we know that we need. So we appreciate the investment that industry has made to come out here and show us what you're able to do. So I think we in turn owe back to you what we need from you. So we need to do a better job of defining our requirements and asking the questions, and that's why we brought our acquisition professionals out here to help us do that, to have those conversations. And I'm going to close with that because we're not done yet. There's a lot of more things to see. I think the displays will be closing down sometime after lunch. So if you haven't had a chance to look at things downstairs, go take a look at the things down there. And then we've also got folks that are set out in our parking lots with other capabilities that if you haven't had a chance to see, go out and see those. Thank you again, General Shea, General Wood, General Gervais. Thank you for coming out here. And General Potts is here. I didn't recognize him earlier. He is PEO soldier. So all this stuff that we're talking about converges at the soldier who is out there in harm's way. So really appreciate his involvement with this as well, and look forward to a great rest of the conference. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, General Hersey. In past years, this is where we would end the program and send you on your way, but we listened to what you had to say, we listened to your comments and your feedback. We're excited to offer additional procurement sessions this afternoon and tomorrow morning. You can expect to receive an email about a week from now with a link to this week's presentations. That email will also contain a survey. We take what your comments provide us very seriously to help us improve the program as we go along. And I think if you've seen how this has grown over the years, we really, truly do take what you give to us seriously. Your input is important, and I think you saw numerous changes to the event this year as a result of your feedback. Please make sure you visit www.afcea.org for the full AFCEA calendar and details of all our upcoming events. Tied into this, we've got an event that will be going in November called MILCOM that's going to be done down in the Tidewater area that will provide a lot of focus on multi-domain operations. We do it in conjunction with IEEE, and this is where a lot of the technology will start to rise up, and the input that you provide will serve our industry and academic partners very well. So thank you very much. So you can mark down TechNet Augusta next year, 19 to 23 August. So if you're departing now, travel safely, and we'll see you next year. Again, I want to thank the Convention Center staff. I want to thank the local AFCEA chapter, the Fort Gordon, Augusta chapter, the Army's presence down here, the Cyber Command presence down here, General Hersey, the entire team. They've been a true pleasure to work for and serve as a model as how we should work with our military partners going forward. Again, as I said, now is an opportunity to have lunch before heading to the sessions. We'll be back here at 1 o'clock for our PEO presentations, and the Jack Voltaire workshop begins at 2 o'clock in Lamar, BC. Today's events will close with a networking mixer with our PEOs and the program managers in the Riverwalk hallway at 5:15. So please enjoy lunch, and this, again, remember that networking opportunity with the PEOs and the PMs. This is something that you asked for, and this is where you can hear it straight from their mouths as what they need and what they're looking for. Thank you all very much. Thank you for your support, and have safe travels.